But it's also World Zero Emissions Day today as well. And I've got the perfect guest with us joining now who's involved in both. Karl Fielder is a Dubai-based clean tech entrepreneur and founder of Neutral Fuels. So what this means is Neutral Fuels has produced, wait for it, 13.5 million litres of biofuel. That's replacing diesel. And, well, I can't even begin to say the number, 36 million plus CO2 EQ in commission since inception. And it started up that facility in Abu Dhabi. Incredible achievement, Karl. Thank you for being with us today. For anyone who's not familiar with the concept of zero emissions, can you explain a little bit of it in perhaps not too scientific terms for us?
Oh, thanks, Helen. What a great introduction. Thank you very much. We essentially take the waste from the kitchens and the restaurants of the UAE, and in our 2 factories in the UAE, we convert that into a biofuel, which is a complete replacement for diesel. So you can use it up to 100% in your engine without any modification. And because it's made from waste, it's extremely green. There is a little bit of carbon footprint left over because we have to buy some other chemicals in order to convert it into biofuel. And those chemicals, we calculate the emissions and we plant trees to immediately offset it. So our customers that are using a pure biofuel have no carbon footprint in their transport.
Can we go back to, you said zero modifications. So let's say, in an ideal world, I'm sure the petrol station around the corner from my house will one day have a neutral fuel nozzle, and I could put it in my Kia without worrying about it going putter stop down the road.
Well, no, actually, if you put it in your Kia, it wouldn't work at all because it works with diesel, not petrol.
So it's purely diesel conversion. Okay,
this is a diesel, but all the trucks and school buses here all run on diesel.
I'll tell my dad. He's got a Land Rover at home. You need to get shipping over to Northumberland. But now this is really key, especially with Expo 2020, very close on the horizon. You're involved in that sustainability scheme where they're going to be using that cooking oil from restaurants on site. Is that right?
That's true. We've deployed about 100 of our special oil containers onto the Expo site in all the pavilions, and we're going to be converting that into biofuel, which is then going to be used by the same trucks that go in at night and collect all the rubbish. So it's what we call a closed loop system. So it takes the waste as an input and also uses the output fuel to run those trucks. But we've been involved with Expo since, well, before it started. I remember getting a really strange phone call, must have been 3 or 4 years ago, that one of our delivery tankers was at the Expo site 3-4 years ago, and it was buried up to its axles because there was no roads. So we've been involved in helping construct even the roads and the buildings. And we've been doing that all along, and we've been using the waste from the UAE in order to help the construction of Expo to make it the most sustainable Expo ever.
Must be hugely exciting for you to see everything that's coming together with, well, in single digits now. What are you most looking forward to?
A bit of peace and quiet. I haven't had any peace and quiet for ages. During COVID, we went from 1 factory to 4 factories. We've got 2 in the UAE, 1 in India and 1 in Bahrain. And by the end of this year, we're going to be 8 factories. And it's absolutely bonkers busy. Honestly, I've never known anything like it in my life.
No, but that's brilliant that there's more of an appetite and more of an understanding of the impact that, obviously big companies and governments can have, but also perhaps us as individuals as well. And I'm curious, so many of us are completely clueless about how to reduce our carbon footprint, and I definitely include myself in that. Karl, as an industry insider and someone who leads a pretty sustainable life yourself as an individual, as well as obviously the work you do with Neutral Fuels, what are some of the things that we might be doing on a daily or annual basis that we perhaps don't realise are having an impact?
Well, unfortunately, it's not the answer that you would like, but the answer is most of us have somebody in the family who works for a living. The most important thing that any of us can do is to get that person who's employed to ask his employer
her employer, Karl.
Sorry, yes, or their employer.
Thank you.
I mean, basically the question is, when is this company going to have a net zero strategy? How can I help them implement net zero? And what's the date of delivering of it? Because COP26 is coming up in Glasgow later on this year when all the world's governments are going to get together. A lot of hot air is going to be talked, and they're going to talk about when each of the countries is going to get to net zero. But the countries themselves can't get there unless the businesses get there. And all the businesses need a net zero strategy.
Can I ask you, when you look internationally then, are there any companies that are absolutely smashing it? They're leading the way and full of good ideas and innovation?
There are. I mean, we work with IKEA, Nestle, McDonald's. They've all got really, really good, well-defined goals. They know exactly where they're going. They're spending the time and the money and the effort on implementing the things. And these are leading brands, and they know that they have to do it, not just because their consumers are demanding it, but because it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're seeing increasingly now, is that businesses are looking at, we've got to make profit, but also how are we going to be long-term sustainable in the eyes of our customers and in the eyes of our shareholders.
And not be on the wrong side of history. And the time to act is now. And as you said, so much happening in terms of sustainability at Expo 2020. It's going to be a real source of inspiration for an awful lot of visitors. Karl, for anyone who is looking to petition their employers or find out more about what you're doing, more information can be found where, sir?
www.neutralfuels.com, or look for us on Facebook or Twitter or anywhere that's got a social media, anything. You'll find us all over the place.
Good man. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Really, really appreciate it. Is it weird to say Happy World Zero Emissions Day? Is that a thing?
I just wish everybody was at zero emissions.
Well, hopefully in years to come, we'll have a chat and we'll look back at this day, September 22nd. Do you remember? I had a dream, and hopefully one day it's going to come true. Karl, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.